Hello, music lovers. Welcome to another episode of Under the Influence. I'm really having a blast with these things. I ain't even kidding. This episode, I got the old Martin box here. You heard it in the intro. It's a pretty interesting guitar. Got a lot of questions on this when I posted it in the Instagram. This guitar was given to me when I was 16 by my grandfather. This is an HD-28V, which means it's got the old V-neck, which is cool. And it's also got the vintage exposed tuners. It's from 1990, I got to check, 5, 6, something like that. And at that time, like I said, I was 16 years old, ish. And I hadn't been playing very much guitar. I'd only played a lot of mandolin up until that point. I just started getting into flat picking. There was a couple of records that really just floored me. And one I'm sure we'll end up doing is Mark O'Connor's Markology record. But that's not why we're here today. We're here today to talk about, in my opinion, only my opinion, the greatest bluegrass acoustic guitar player of all time. And that's Tony Rice. I could do about 400 episodes on Tony Rice and his greatness. But this episode's on Manzanita. Manzanita came out in 1979. I got my notes here. Make sure I'm telling some correct stats. 1979, Rounder Records. And when I first heard it, it was, Manzanita's an instrumental. And it's on the album Manzanita. And it just embodies the perfect newgrass instrumental song. The players on the album were Tony Rice, obviously, on guitar. I got Daryl Anger, Sam Bush, Dave Grisman, Jerry Douglas, Ricky Skaggs, Todd Phillips. Those guys made one of the greatest bluegrass records of all time. And this is track number 2 on the album. And Tony Rice produced it. Looks like Bill Wolf engineered and mixed it. All right. So there's your back history. Now, how did it affect me? So up until this point in my life, like I said, I'd only been playing mandolin. And, I'd always loved instrumental tunes because of my granddad's love for fiddle tunes. And when I finally started getting into some more adventurous music, branching out, steering slightly away from all of those old Bill Monroe and Flat and Scruggs tunes, I discovered Newgrass Revival. And Sam Bush, if you remember, he was the first episode of Under the Influence, rightfully so. And I think it's only fair in this evolution of the series to talk about Manzanita and its effect on me. And when I first heard it, I just was it has like this mysterious quality, and it's got this major minor kind of sound, right? You know, typically in minor you get, you know, so you get root, 9 or 2, minor third, 4, 5, and then a flat 6. Right? Tony always loved this kind of major minor thing where he's playing like a 4. And those kinds of licks are quintessential to Tony's sound. And the melody had a really, really kind of weaving fiddle tune-esque, you know, kind of thing. And based out of D minor. And when it goes to the second parts where it gets really traditional bluegrass, you know, that kind of thing, right? And it's in that double time. That kind of thing, right? So like in true, you know, in kind of a jazz influenced style, everybody plays the melody of the tune, and then everybody takes solos over the melody, and they come back, play the melody again, and exit the tune. At this moment in history, a lot of bluegrass was kind of evolving into something else, and I think this tune, in a lot of ways, was like the you know, Surfing with the Alien. You know, maybe Eruption would be a good comparison. You know, a similar time frame, right? Late 70s. And what Tony was doing on guitar, bluegrass guitar, he was kind of charting some uncharted water. Most of the time in bluegrass, the guitar had always just been a backup instrument. Occasionally some lead playing, but never on those old Bill Monroe records. Did you ever hear anybody playing any lead guitar? You know, because typically in bluegrass, it's just a lot of... And even in fiddle tunes, there wasn't a lot of... outside of the occasional fiddle tune like Cheyenne or Jerusalem Ridge or something like that, there wasn't a lot of minor sounds in bluegrass. Everything's very major. Very major with a flat 7, right? A lot of dominant sounds. And then this tune come out on this record. And me personally, when I got a hold of it, being a teenager and 16, it sounded like edgier, and it sounded like something that I'd never heard before, while still maintaining a familiarity in the voice of the music and the voice of the instruments. Like there was mandolin, there was dobro, it was all the things I was used to hearing, but it was pushing things in a different direction. And I think a lot of ways for me, Manzanita was a gateway drug to things like Chick Corea. You know, the only other jazz I'd really listened to when I was 15 or 16 was Stephen Grappelli and Django. I listened to a lot of that with my cousin. My cousin being a fiddle player, we listened to a lot of Stephen Grappelli. You know, Tony played with Vassar Clemens, and Vassar was a more experimental fiddle player. And so obviously I wasn't alive when this record was cut. So most bluegrass and most music in my early life, I was listening to, you know, long after the fact of the release. I can't even tell you who exposed me to Manzanita. I don't really remember, because Tony Rice is just such a common figure. If you can, you know, try to think about, you know, who exposed you to Eddie Van Halen. It's like he's always just been around, you know, even non-guitar players know Eddie Van Halen, right? In the bluegrass circles, even non-guitar bluegrass kids, myself, right? I was a 15-year-old, 14-year-old kid. It's like, of course I knew who Tony Rice was, you know? And when I started playing some lead guitar, it was one of the first melodies I ever learned. And as Tony got older, he started playing these like cooler, like improvised versions, right? These long intros, and playing those kind of chords like I did at the top of the episode. And in that way, it was a lot like a Cliffs of Dover, right? Like EJ always does the big intros before the big improvised intros, you know, before launching into it. And now that's later in life, that's the way Tony handled handled the tune. It's weird because it's like I remember all the specifics about it, but the specifics aren't what make it important to me. It's the more scoped out idea of the song. It's just familiar instruments playing unfamiliar music. That's what the influence was to me. And I was searching. At that moment in time, I was searching for different sounds and different things. And that was only a couple of years before I started playing electric guitar. So I think that this was like that early step into playing guitar, which led me to, this stuff, right? And to this day, I still think Tony's the best acoustic bluegrass player of all time. His tone is amazing. His timing is very unique, and his dynamics are very unique, and his licks very signature. The thing about guys that try to play like Tony Rice, it's very similar to Elvis impersonators, right? None of them sound like Elvis, but they all sound just like each other. And I love that quote. It's true, right? Like everybody that tries to copy Tony, like they never sound like Tony, but they all sound like each other, right? And I'm a victim of it too, right? So like at the top of the episode, I was trying to sound like Tony, and I don't sound like Tony. I think that's the point. He's just got such a thumbprint. It's just, you can't replace it. Yeah, and also happy birthday to Tony. I think Tony turned 69 this year, Monday of this week. If you haven't heard Manzanita, go dig it up. The tune is amazing. You can get a ton of different versions on YouTube. Playing's always immaculate. The original version's great. The recording's great, but definitely get on YouTube and find some other versions and just check out all of his improvisations. It's super good, man. It's just maybe one of the best newgrass instrumentals, maybe the best newgrass instrumental ever written. I don't like to make things a competition, but Tony Rice makes it really easy to use the words best. It's like, it tends to not be much of an opinion. Everybody seems to go, yeah, Tony's the greatest, and now we'll talk about everybody else, right? So yeah, go check out Manzanita and enjoy. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you want to see more of this stuff, if you want more licks and that kind of thing, jump over to Patreon. I'm going to do a lesson on how to play the intro to Manzanita and the main melody. Do a nice little simple lesson on how to play the thing. Yeah, jump over to Patreon if you want that lesson. I appreciate you guys so much, and we'll see you next time.